Hello, everybody. Our next speaker is Martin Keplinger. He changed the name of his talk, so it's tslib, the touchscreen access library is back. Please give him a warm welcome.
Hello, everybody. So I will talk a little bit about my recent input system development in the tslib library. I will get to what tslib actually is in a minute. So I started working on this library because my employer wanted me to. He needs tslib, it's important for us. And specifically, I did multi-touch support. And last year, soon I became the maintainer of the project itself. And really quickly, really fast, I did a release. 1.2 is the first release I did. And at my company, somebody came up to me and he was joking, you know, this is the second release of this thing in 10 years. There should be a huge release party now. And of course, maybe that would be a little over the top for a tiny input library. But initially, I had to call my talk the release party. So quickly, I want to add that my employer, obviously, that's Kinzinger Electronic Systems, is a member of the OSADL organization. We support free software that way. But of course, everything I do is on GitHub. And actually, everything I think about this project is on GitHub. The releases are actually the outline of my talk now. So I will tell you what tslib is, how and why it is used today and has been used, and what I did, what I added to the project, and what new use cases there might be for you nowadays. So tslib is a C library. It simply enables or fixes touch input. And there are tools included to quickly test and configure the library. What does it do? Very easy. It reads input samples from your input device driver. It applies filters to it, or in any way you want, and any number of filters. And it offers the resulting filtered input stream of samples to users. Easy, right? The core of the library is very, very tiny and basically only manages plugins. Every real work is done in a plugin or module. There are two kinds of module. There are hardware modules or raw modules, as we call them, and filter plugins or modules. Let's get to an example. Oh, okay. What we have here is a complete ts.conf configuration file. That's everything. That's a complete example. You would use one raw module to access your input device driver. And that's also the point here. This thing is really old. It was basically written because device drivers didn't have a standard like they have nowadays with the normal Linux input event system. So in this case, an eGalax something driver is used and needs a module to access this specific driver's samples. And you would apply, in this case, 3 filters to it. You know what they actually do. Variance tries to filter out huge jumps in touch samples that shouldn't be there. Dejitter, so when you don't move your pen or finger. Especially on resistive touchscreens, the hardware would have, jitter. And linear does real linear transformation of your X and Y positions. To quickly test the experience you created now, there is simply tst, you run it, and you try it out. To use this thing, tst, for example, implements tslib's API, tsread. So there are also plugins for Qt or X or what have you that implement tslib's API, and they are also in use today. And the reason tslib, the reason this thing was in use, and I want to add that it's used in many commercial products too. It was used in the Nokia internet tablets back in, I don't know, 2004, or when was that? And it was there to enable touch in the first place. The hardware would really, when you think about resistive touch screens, they would drift and everything, and you needed something to correct them. All right. So what did I do? What did I do? Fortunately, the world changed. Drivers are, you know, standard Linux input drivers. You just have the input events, keys, and code. And I did multi-touch support. The one hardware plugin you use in tslib as soon as you have a normal input system device driver is called input. And you basically only need this one these days. And I added multi-touch support for this module and for the filter modules. In this case, you add a median filter. When you remember this from, I don't know, statistics or math class, it's a median filter. Digita again, debounce is about pressure values. And there's a whole new multi-touch API now, and of course the test programs for multi-touch. So, remember once again, it's a portable C library. It's very configurable. You only have to compile what you need, what modules you need. You can do this statically and dynamically. It should be stable. It's really old. It works really well. But why would you use it today? When you think about capacitive touchscreens who have fancy firmware in them, you can already configure really, really good. Well, you can still use tslib to really optimize your user experience. And the point is, you can do this at runtime. You can even think about changing the behavior of your touch input experience. I don't know, think about depending on your physical environment or anything. And in our case, we manage different touch screens in our system, and that's really easy by just managing one small configuration file. And what I really like is I wrote a little program you can run as a daemon that now is basically a user space input device driver and for tslib. So it offers you a new standard Linux input device you can use, and you simply point your environment to it and you're done. You don't need to implement tslib's API anymore. You might gain some performance improvements if you still do, but you don't really have to. We actually don't. So yesterday I ran some statistics quickly so that you have a few names. Russell King actually wrote tslib and his first initial, Git initial commit was in December of 2001. You might remember Russell King for porting Linux to ARM. Also around that time, I think. And basically, after his initial commit, Douglas Lauder took over. Chris Larson, I think now, does anybody know if Chris Larson is here at FOSDEM? I was wondering, but I didn't see him. All right. He was maintaining the project before me, before I took over. He did a really good job. The project is in a really good state. And that's basically the overview of tslib. In case you have questions, go ahead now. I could also tell you what things are open and still to do. I could, I don't know, tell you about the available filter plugins you have, but in case you have a question, just shout.
I come along with the mic. Just give me a hand if you have a question. Don't be shy. To-dos.
Well, they're all on GitHub, but hoppala. But yes, there is still a minor issue with multi-touch. When you read the whole multi-touch definitions, there is a concept of not only your touch contact, but also the tool, the position of the tool you are using, be it your finger or your pen. And we don't yet apply all our filters to the position of your tool in case you have a hardware that really supports this kind of thing. That's one development issue. We need documentation. We need more documentation in the GitHub wiki. We don't have a wiki yet. You could imagine doing more static analysis or even fuzzing or whatever. But just have a look at the GitHub issues.
Anyone else? No, then thanks a lot for your talk, Martin.